The not your keys, not your coins, not your cheese mantra resonates today more than ever following the implosions of crypto firms like Voyager, Celsius, and FTX. And now companies like Ledger are looking to make it easier for institutions and people to hold digital assets and boost investor confidence in the market. Joining us to discuss is Ledger CEO Pascal Gauthier. Pascal, welcome.
Thank you, guys.
So Ledger is working with crypto custodian Etana Custody to offer cryptocurrency custody for institutional clients in the US. Are the regulatory headwinds a problem? What are you preparing for?
I mean, I think, for us, we are a technology company. So what we do is provide others with our technology, whether it's retail, and then you become your own bank. And if you're a financial institution, we give you the tools so you can actually secure the private keys and manage the governance on top of the private keys. And so as far as we're concerned, we are sort of helping regulators and legislators to have more clarity because our technologies allow for better governance over the coins, and you can actually see with the kind of technology that we have sort of what's happening, which is the problem with FTX. The FTX, like nobody knew what was happening, nobody knew what was the governance, and actually we solved that problem. But for us, we're just a technology company, and so therefore regulation doesn't apply to us.
Right, have you acquired new customers as a result of FTX? I imagine that's the case, but do you have a number? Have you seen just orders going up like crazy?
Well, for sure. I mean, on the retail side, our best day, week, months happen in November, and it's just like a bunch of people and investors that were afraid, and so just came to us for safety. And when it comes on the institutional side, we're seeing the same trend, but it's a little slower. So the ripple of FTX, you'll see that in the next 2 years, I think. But it's happening, but it will take some time.
What does it take to make it so that the on-ramp is no longer an FTX or a centralized exchange?
It would probably be like, it's not the problem that an exchange is an exchange. The problem is that an exchange also does the custody. Actually, if you look at NASDAQ, if you look at the normal world, nobody does the exchange and the custody anymore.
Right.
So custodians do the custody and the exchange do the exchange.
Not to mention the clearinghouse.
Correct. You got a segregation of duties so you're not tempted to, steal the cookie jar.
But for the average user, so that the place that, the first place they will come in is a DEX, is really what I'm asking.
Well, it's not really like that. What is happening for customers right now, and what we see is the numbers, they start their journey with Ledger. And then from Ledger, they can do the on-ramp, they can do the off-ramp, they can swap, etc. But
so the wallet becomes the on-ramp.
Yes, the wallet becomes everything. And this is what's going to happen in the future. Like we all going to have a wallet. It's going to be secured by some form of ledger. And this is what's gonna trigger everything else. From your wallet, you go to everything else. It's very interesting because after this, people start to think, okay, but now if I have my private keys, what do I do with it and how do I engage? And actually, if you want to engage with DeFi, you need to have your private keys. Right? If you want to buy an NFT, you need to have your private keys. And so all these things are coming to life now. And in 5 years, it will be very evident that if you don't have your private keys and if they're not secure on something like a ledger, you can't be part of that game.
You mentioned that, and Ledger is doing this, pushing towards more institutional adoption of your products, of self-custody. Why is that so much slower, in your opinion, based on your experience? It's slower than retail onboarding, or is it?
For financial institutions?
For financial institutions, yeah.
Well, I think two things are happening. First, financial institutions are too focused on the top line and not enough on the fundamentals. And, I've been saying this many times, and, whoever wants to challenge me on an idea, I've got so many examples of, why don't you do your security better? Why don't you do your governance better right away? But there's always something better to do. And so it's the same thing with cybercrime and cyber in general. If you ask the CEO of the top 500 companies in the US, what are they doing about cybercrime? They'll give you an answer. The answer is very different after a hack. You always do more after a hack than before. And so there is this thing of you need to get burned before you actually understand that fire burns. And so it's a little backwards. And what you've seen, and the crash of 2022 is exactly that. People are too focused on speculation, too focused on the top line, and not focused enough on the fundamentals. And I think that's wrong, and that needs to change.
We talked a little bit about regulation, but everything has been sort of US focused, but we've just had MiCA or MiCA pass in the EU. How much does that affect you guys? I mean, you're a European-based company.
It's a great question. I think regulation is a big keyword, but MiCA is only going to come in effect in Europe after 26, I think. So it's actually a very, very long process. And between now and then, many things can happen. Technology can evolve, etc. So I think regulation is one thing, but the pace at which innovation is happening is another thing, which makes it always very, very hard for regulators to catch up with innovation. And it's not the regulator's fault, and it's not the legislator's fault. It's just like the way of technology. Imagine in 26 where this industry will be. I mean,
who knows?
Imagine where it was in 20, where it is now, and where it's going to be in 26. So it's very hard to predict how regulation is going to impact any business. We're working hard on this, and we think MiCA is a positive step forward. And we are doing a lot of work in regulation, whether it's in Washington or in Europe, because these are the two main focus.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to understand, and technology evolves fast.
Yeah. You mentioned, I mean, we don't know what the world's going to look like in 2026, but I mean, we were looking at the Bitcoin price chart earlier, and we had one of these. So let's pull it back. Let's talk about Bitcoin's price in the near term. Let's talk about it, in 2026. We saw the $1 million bet that Balaji made. Is he out of his mind, or is 2026 the time we're going to get to that point?
So at Ledger, we never speculate on price. We don't care. We're here to provide security and ease of use to the market.
Sure.
But I can tell you one thing. People talk about Bitcoin like it's no big thing. Okay, let's do a test now. Let's see if it's no big deal. You have a US bank account?
Yes, I do.
I've got a French bank account. I'm going to wire you money now. We can do the test. I'm going to wire you $100,000 from my French bank account.
Good times.
Voilà.
That sounds great.
And then we're going to do the same, but you're going to send it back in Bitcoin to me.
Okay.
And who's going to arrive first?
Bitcoin, yeah.
But by miles, because first of all, from my phone right now, I cannot send you $100,000, etc. And people will say, but nobody sends $100,000. Okay, it. I'll send you $50.
Yeah, it's actually even worse with that example. Right? You want to pay a freelancer overseas $100 to do something.
You can't. Ugh. And so, the fact that people understand that Bitcoin is the first time that we have digital peer-to-peer payment system, cross-border, across everything, and people are like, oh, this is no big deal. I'm like, it is the big deal. It's the only big deal.
So how many ledgers are you shipping so far this year in the first quarter?
We shipped over 6 million devices this year. I don't know, give or take, one already. But it's ramping up fast.
Up or down from last year?
We're flat. So we were lucky to do a flat 22 compared to 21, and 23 looks like flat to us, which is, good and bad. Like flat is a new up in this market, but we're launching Stacks anytime soon now. So Stacks is a new product, and I think that's going to change a lot of things. And we're launching a bunch of products now in H2 that I think will change the market, because we are really focused on ease of use. And people say, oh, but self-custody is hard to use. Again, try your online bank account. Is that easy to use? I don't think so. I mean, mine is terrible. It's use a ledger for me. So I hope that people will see that, and more with Stacks and a few other products that we're going to launch in H2.
Yeah, you talked about cross-border payments. Do you think there's going to be another country that follows El Salvador's lead to make Bitcoin legal tender, or is that kind of just not even that important?
No, it will happen over time, slowly, etc. But the countries that will do it first are countries where it's not countries, it's people first. Countries don't care so much about it, but when your currency is fucked, because we talk about this, you're in the US, in Europe, etc. Euro is strong, dollar is strong, it's fine. But if you live in Argentina, it's a different problem.
Yeah.
And so, or if you live in Lebanon, it's a different problem. And so I think it is a revolution for the people, by the people, and it's going to happen like that. With the day that you travel to Argentina, you can pay everything in Bitcoin. You'll be like, oh, actually, it's easier. Yeah. I wish I could pay everything in Bitcoin in the US, but it's not possible.
Yeah. All right, Pascal, that's all the time we have for you today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
That was Ledger CEO Pascal Gauthier.